Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is a list of what I look for in a game. What makes a game fun? Now, it was going to be a list of 10 things, but then I found an 11th, and in this particular list, more so than others, it's not about finding that magical 10 number. It's really about finding the things that make a game fun for me. When I'm sitting there looking at the best games in my collection, when I'm sitting there evaluating a new game, what are the commonalities that they share? What is it that I am looking for in that experience? Now this will be different for every single person, and the entire premise, this is a list that I've been compiling for 3-4 months now, ever since I had a video with Jeremy Howard, not the most recent one of Monster Hunter World versus Primal, but rather we did a video a while ago of what we look for in a Kickstarter. And towards the end of the video, he dropped in there just unprompted that games have to be fun. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, sure. But it led to me thinking for myself, what makes a game fun for me? We're all going to have different experiences. We're all going to have different facets of why a game resonates with us versus not. And what are we looking for? And I think, especially if you're going to be watching my reviews, it's helpful to know the kinds of things that I am looking for, the commonalities that any particular game or set of games will share that will make them something that is more likely to be staying in my collection, more likely to be receiving a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5 instead of a 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5 is a classic good game. Plenty of good games. Some I own, some I don't. But they're not the ones that I want to play, that I'm itching to get to the table again. And so I started putting together a list back then, when we first started talking about it. I started putting together a list, and some of them will be things that you've heard me say time and time and again that doesn't really take more than a second for me to realize that's something I look for, like powers and abilities. Powers and abilities will absolutely be on this list because, well, I say it every single time I'm talking about a game. But really defining the full amount of things I'm looking for. That when a game checks off, 10 out of those 11, there's a solid chance it's going to be a 5 out of 5 for me. That's really what this list was. And so I started putting together the various aspects, and every time I thought of one, every time I saw a commonality, I added to the list, and that's where we are today. That's where we are with finally a near complete list, and near complete means it will change. It will definitely change, and the reason it will change is when I'm done going through what they are and talking with them and explaining them, I'm also going to go through these 4 games on the table and explain to you how they each fit into not necessarily all, but most of those things. And then I'm also going to grab a 5th game. That is going to be Architects of the West Kingdom. And I'm going to explain how this one also seems to check off most of the games on the list, and yet this one was just in my games leaving the collection video. So there's definitely some room for improvement here. And there's also going to be a follow-up video at some point. A list that I'm also still working on, things I don't like in games. Just the same way there are going to be things that are positives that I'm looking for, there will be things that are negatives. Mechanics I don't like, gameplay styles, degrees of aggression, different things that may make a game less likely to be a fit for me. But that's not today's video. So, today's video, let's start off the bat with, like I said already, powers and abilities. Powers and abilities are going to be the thing that first was on this list. It's the first thing that came to mind in terms of things that I'm looking for in games. When a game gives me any form of powers and abilities, games that let you do fun and cool things, games that let you have cards full of powers and you can cast a fireball at range 2, area of effect 3, and spend 2 mana and do that. Meanwhile, someone else is using control and pulling someone towards them, and perhaps there's tableau different powers and abilities, all different kinds of powers and abilities you can have in games. That a game like Blood Rage will have powers and abilities on every single card. Maybe you have pre-built faction abilities that distinguish yourself. But I like it when a game gives you a set of rules and then gives you the tools to break those rules. That makes you feel powerful. It makes you feel like you're doing things. It makes you feel like, look at this. The game confined me to this thing that I can do. But watch as I cast that 3 attack with 2 spread, and I'm just making up terms at this point. But if it lets you do something, Kemet is an incredible experience with a host of ability tiles at the very top, and picking through them and building out your own unique system, your own unique tech tree of how you are different and special than every other player is so rewarding. Inish gives you powers and abilities through the individual cards you're going to be drafting and the way you can do something this turn that no one else can. And then, of course, the other cards, the Epic Tale cards and the various locations you can gain control of. It's all about giving you a confined rule set and then giving you all these ways that you can break that. There are so many different game experiences. Zombicide, Cthulhu Death May Die. I can pick dozens of my favorite games, and they give you things that you can do that are just fun. I love doing those fun things. I love it when some things... Take Marvel United. Marvel United, every time you play one of your character cards, that gives you that special extra thing that's not just a symbol, but lets you do whatever. Or even maybe you're playing your double wild symbol. Those are all things that just, it gives you a degree and room to feel powerful. I want the game to be a challenge, don't get me wrong. The last thing I want is a walk in the park. The last thing I want is for a game to just give you so much you can do that it's not necessarily fun. But give me all the stuff. Throw at me all the things that are problematic. Throw at me all the baddies or the who knows what, or maybe just opponents, cooperative versus competitive. But then give me the powers and abilities to deal with them. That's going to be number one. Number two is going to be engine building. Engine building and really two is going to be engine building. Engine building is going to be the aspect of tableau building of some sort, of not just the degree of powers and abilities, but the degree of a form of escalation. Now, not all games will do that to different degrees. A game like Inish doesn't really have that much in the way of tableau building. You'll slowly gain control of different areas, so you might have some degree of tableau building, but I want it that you get better and more powerful as the game progresses. Take Cthulhu Death May Die. As the game progresses, your characters level up and get progressively more powerful. Take Food Chain Magnet. As you do things, as you build out your network, you are consistently getting not just powers, but the ability to become more powerful in every single game. I love tableau building because it not just gives you the one-time power and ability, but it locks in consistent improvements. It doesn't necessarily have to be ability-based. It could be stat-based. It could be something of some sort like that. But whatever it is that it does do, I like it when a game lets you build up that tableau, lets you build up that engine. It could be deck building. It doesn't have to be a physical tableau. It could be deck building. Deck building is a form of engine building that I appreciate as well. It's the same idea. It lets me become more powerful or better at what I'm doing as the game progresses, and I love that in games. Number three is going to be the puzzle, and this is the most vague of all of them. And the puzzle, if I was trying to get the list down to 10, back from 11, I'd probably get rid of the puzzle first. Not because it isn't meaningful, but because it's so broad that nearly every single game will hit it in some sense. Now, how much they hit it, that varies. If I was having like a 10-point scale for each of my 11 points, it would change the conversation. But I currently just rank it as binary. But the puzzle is the idea that you are given in any game system, whether cooperative or competitive, you are effectively being given a puzzle to solve. You are effectively being given a set of constraints that the game designer has put in place, and then a goal and objective that you're making your way towards. And then you need to see, through all the game elements and mechanics that were given to you, you need to find the pathway forward that best represents your chance of victory. Again, cooperative or competitive doesn't really change the picture. Whether you're fighting against a game, whether you're fighting against other players, the goal is to take in all those factors that you're aware of, take in all those things that were given to you, and then figure out that commonality, figure out the pathway through. Now, in some games, this is more evident than others. In some games, that puzzle is really in your face as you try to cohesively put together different things. Connecting Flights is a game that I just talked about briefly that is on Kickstarter now, and it's one that I got the chance to play the prototype solo, and the solo very much gives you that puzzle feel as you try to connect flights, as you try to take together cars and slot them together and move passengers from here to here, but then you need to rearrange your airport every single turn and move that from here to there. Now again, almost every single game, whether I like it or not, is going to in some way have the puzzle. But the degree to which it has the puzzle is definitely going to matter. The degree to which I feel I have agency in my decisions is going to be the biggest factor. Because many games, I mean, Monster Hunter World is another example here. Monster Hunter World is a game that I do love. I do enjoy Monster Hunter World, but I would argue that 75% of the time, the decision I'm making is not really that hard of a decision. There are certainly times it is, and it's those decisions that keep me invested in the experience. But very often it comes down to choosing the best card in your hand. Now, keep in mind, only played the intro 2 scenarios. I haven't played the game as it develops, so I'm only commenting on my experience that I've had so far. But in general, I want to feel like I have agency. I want to feel like you gave me a group of choices where I have to actually puzzle it out, not just choose the best pathway forward. Something I've said for a while is, War is a game that has no choice. War, when you play cards back and forth, you just see who wins. There is no agency in that game whatsoever. But if you give someone the illusion of agency, it doesn't necessarily make the game better. If I redefine the set of rules around War, such that you draw 2 cards and pick one, there'd be the illusion of choice, but there'd still be no choice, because there's no incentive to ever pick the lower card. Always pick the higher card, why would you not? So the illusion of choice doesn't make it better. Now, the more complicated a game gets, the further removed you get from the illusion of choice, and that's what I mean when I say the puzzle. Very often a game will give you a set of constraints, and yet you'll say, well, sure, I have like 5 or 6 options, but the obvious one is this. That isn't rewarding to me. I want the choices to be hidden amongst the complexity of the puzzle. I want to sit there and have to really work my way through the challenge that you put on the table. So every game has the puzzle. Most every game has the puzzle. But the more it has the puzzle, the more it'll check that box for me. Number 4 is player interaction. The idea that what other players matter, what other players do matters. And this is whether it's cooperative or competitive, but I like that interaction. Now, when I say cooperative versus competitive, in cooperative, I want what other players to do to matter and not to be purely an alpha player experience. If I'm sitting there playing the game and the only thing the rest of you are doing therefore is providing social interaction, and I don't need you for this because I can min-max your turns for you, then that's not, I mean, I'll hold back. I won't alpha player it, or I'll try not to, but it's not as rewarding of an experience in a cooperative experience. I want you to be essential in what's going on. Now, a good example, we'll get to a little earlier, Spirit Island. Spirit Island, you absolutely could alpha play it if you try hard enough, but so many things are going on in Spirit Island that I feel I need you there. I feel that I need someone else there handling their cards and their pathway forward and their progression of their spirit, because I can barely keep track of what's going on my board, let alone trying to handle 3 different spirits. So that's a good example of what I mean when I say the interaction mattering in cooperative. And then competitive, it's just, well, I like interaction. I'm not against a solo puzzle, don't get me wrong. Terraforming Mars is one of my favorite games of all time, and the interaction there is on the lower side. It's not present at all. You're certainly drafting cards, you're certainly fighting over the player board, but compared to many other games I play, it's on the lower side. And yet I love it, so it's not an essential component. But the more player interaction a game has, the more I will enjoy it. The more removed I feel I am from the understanding and caring of what you are doing compared to what I'm doing. If we are just both racing towards 20 victory points with no care whatsoever as to what the other player does and how, I'm not saying I won't like the game, but it's certainly a strike away from that level of interaction that I want on the table. Number 5. Number 5 is going to be accessibility. Accessibility is the idea that a game is easy to table. More and more as my collection grows, more and more as I get in these over-the-top game boxes, a game gets big points for being easy to table. Whatever the game might be, whether it's a game like Watergate, whether it's a game like Istanbul over here, the easier a game is to play. Canvas, which I've been talking about recently. The easier a game is to actually read the rules, teach other players, and actually play is going to be major points in terms of how much I enjoy it. It's not that I don't like complicated games. It's not that I don't like heavy games that have set up across half a table with tons of dungeon crawling experience and whatnot. Those games often do have the best powers and abilities, but they come at a price. And that price is how often am I actually pulling it out? How often am I actually, first of all, reading the rulebook. Some of these games have, Chronicles of Dunegar, which I'm playing right now, has like a 60-page rulebook. It takes a decent amount, the actual initial setup's not bad, but you have to keep reaching into the box as you slowly but surely expand upon the dungeon. Now it has powers and abilities, it has tableau building, it has a lot of those other things that I actually love in games, but it certainly does not have accessibility. And so accessibility is going to be one of the things that I definitely value in a game. I find it often comes at the cost of many of the other things I like. So sometimes it can be a trade-off, but it's definitely something I like. Number 6 is going to be accelerated endgame. Now this does sometimes go hand in hand with engine building, but not necessarily. But accelerated endgame is going to be the idea that as the game moves on, it picks up pace. It gets progressively more, well, accelerated. You're going to have a little bit of a curve. If I do this much, I do this much, I do this much, I do this much over here. Now this can happen in anything, from a game like Viticulture to a game like Cthulhu Death May Die, whether a heavy Euro or a dungeon crawling experience, you can both have it. Viticulture is a game where you're trying to get points, and you'll slowly but surely be producing your points from wine and all those things as the game progresses. You'll spend the first 40 minutes of your game getting 3 points, and then suddenly you'll get 5 points, and then 7 points, and then cross the line into 25 points in one shot. You can get so many points as your engine picks up steam, as you build up your wine, and you have your cards and your abilities, your whole tableau moving forward. Games that give you that aspect of aggression, of moving forward, of picking up speed as the game continues. I like it. I like the fact that it drives home towards an accelerated endgame. And Cthulhu Death May Die is going to be, for me, the pinnacle of an accelerated endgame, of any game I have ever played. Cthulhu Death May Die has you, the adventurers, the heroes, there's another word for what you are, but whatever you are, whatever that term that the heroes have is, you are slowly going to be going insane as you level up your characters, as you power up, and you will hit this pinnacle of being absolutely crazily powerful, but you'll also die the next turn. In the meantime, the Elder One, he's sitting there getting progressively more powerful as he moves through three different levels of how difficult he is to actually kill, and each time getting progressively more powerful. The game has a power ramp as you each just head to this pinnacle of either losing or winning, but every single game of Cthulhu Death May Die I've ever played, I've gotten to the end of the game, and I either think I'm going to win and I lose, or I think I'm going to lose and I win. It is so tight at that end game because of that power ramp that it's such a fun feeling in a game. Number 7 is going to be grit your teeth decisions. Now, that's a bit of a vagueness, and it does tie into the puzzle to a degree. But I like it when a game has decisions in it that are not just I'm making a decision, but rather I'm making a decision and I can't stand the fact that I have to make a decision. Now, I'm not referring to AP, analysis paralysis, the idea of being stuck there without making a decision. Rather, I'm just referring to the fact that I know I have to decide, and I will decide, but no matter what I do is going to result in something bad happening. And again, that could be anything. And the most common example I'll give is going to be drafting. Drafting, for me, most often, it has that grit-your-teeth decision-making skills. Whether it's Bunny Kingdom, Blood Rage, Inish, whatever, any game, Terraforming Mars, any game that has drafting, as you try to manage what you're going to pass to your opponent. Things that will help him or her, and things that will help you. But there's 2 cards in your hand that you need, and you can't actually make a choice, unless, of course, you're playing Bunny Kingdom, in which case you can take both those cards, because that's how you draft in Bunny Kingdom, 2 cards at a time. But in Terraforming Mars, you get your hand of 4 cards, and you want them all, and some of the grit-your-teeth decisions about the fact that you're passing your cards to your opponent. And even if you're playing it solo and there is no drafting, some of the grit-your-teeth decisions is about the fact that every card you keep, you have to pay for. And that's money that can go towards otherwise building your engine. And so yes, that card is amazing and it's going to fit in and slot in perfectly into everything you're trying to do. But it's also going to cost you 3 money. And you need that 3 money to build all the cards you want this turn. So what do? Do you prioritize now or later? There are so many games that give you that intenseness of what am I going to do, what choice am I going to make, and the feeling of pain and suffering as whatever choice you make. Carson City, you're going to be fighting for control over different areas in this worker placement game, and sure, I can go to these gun spawn and get 3 extra guns, which will almost certainly lock in my decisions of what I need to get, because I'll just have that much more power in any gun fight that occurs. But it also means I'm giving up one of my valuable worker placement spots. So what do? Maybe I'll pass on it, and then you go to the gun spot next turn, and I'm like, no, it is the worst. I love that feeling of tenseness around decisions. Number 8, I think. 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes, 8. 8's going to be people. I should probably number this list. 8's going to be people around you enjoying the game. Now, that might sound like an obvious thing, but I don't think it necessarily is. Especially in heavy Euro games, I find very often people around you have their head to the table, and they might be enjoying the experience. But sometimes I have to get to the end of a game and say, so, how'd you like it? And I may not know the answer until the end. Because it's not that you can't be enjoying it, it's that the enjoyment is so wrapped up in the mental energy of processing what's going on that it doesn't come across at the table. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't stop me from enjoying the game. But when people around you are actively enjoying the game, I think it enhances the experience. It's why party games do so well. A game like Monikers, a game like Codenames, it doesn't compare to the tenseness, to the strategy, to what I look for in a gaming experience. But you put Codenames on the table and we'll have a blast. Because we'll be having fun playing this game, and then everyone around us is having fun, and that fun is genuinely contagious as people laugh over the stupidest, silliest things in those games. Now, you don't have to be playing a party game for people around you to be having fun in a game. There are any number of different experiences that might be party adjacent. Quacks of Quedlinburg, Cubitos, probably not Food Chain Magnets, that doesn't really come across as much. But games like Blood Rage, people actively attacking each other and getting that hype of even just the noises people make when they're drafting. When we play Bunny Kingdom, people are like, no, I want this whole hand of cards, what am I going to do? Just watching their tenseness, watching enjoyment doesn't have to be pure laughter. But people around you visibly enjoying the game, to me, enhances my own experience as well. It's why we have this groupthink, this idea of, even though a game might be vastly rated differently by different people online, we find that within our own group, we often, not always, we often align on our general idea of did we like or not like a game. I think groupthink does happen to a degree, group feeling and enjoying a game, people around you having that fun, it adds to the experience. Number 9 is going to be wow moments in a game. Now, wow moments is not necessarily easy to define, but I find lots of games have wow moments, and lots of games are a little bit more stable. Now, sometimes they come with an accelerated endgame. To a certain degree, a wow moment will almost always be present when you have this acceleration of someone being able to get like 15 points in a single turn in a game that only goes up to 60 points. So you can have those accelerated endgame moments that turn into wow moments, but it doesn't have to be as such. Sometimes it's just a perfect combination of factors that work together. In Spirit Island, it's going to be playing like 3 or 4 cards in a row that completely sweep the board and you feel powerful doing so, as opposed to a more stable engine where you just consistently wipe out people on a regular basis. So wow moments, that idea of having something that's more powerful, something that's better. Zombicide is going to have these left, right, and center, whether it's a bunch of zombies closing in around you and you have someone who manages to throw a dragon's breath thingy, flamey with Jiggy. That's the word. I'm playing Zombicide 2, so now I have Molotov Cocktail in my head. But whatever it is you're doing, there are going to be so many times, Molotov Cocktails in general, throwing down tons of different of just destroying the board, wiping the board from other players is so much fun. And so wow moments in games are definitely going to be something that I look for in, well, most games. Number 10. 10 is going to be variability. Now, variability is a tough one because I don't necessarily play games, well, it depends on the game. Across my collection, there are games I play again and again and again. And there are also games that I pull out, I play, and 6 months later I play again, and across a 2-year period I might play it 4 times. And so variability is to a certain extent less necessary the less frequently you're playing a game. And that's why a game like The Reckoners, a game that I really do love, is a game that I specifically and with great intent only pull out infrequently, because at least the base game for myself doesn't feel like it has variability. It's the same game every single time. Sure, there's different symbols and different slight differences in the way the epics play out, but it doesn't really feel like it matters. I want games to feel like they are different when I play them. Marvel United, a counter to Reckoners would be Marvel United. The heroes don't feel that different. Not different enough for me. Sure, they are different, but they don't feel that different. But every time I play against a different villain, it feels like a different gameplay experience, and I like that variability in a game. It means that I can hop back to it tomorrow and jump straight in. Merchant's Cove, which I just reviewed, is a game that, to me, that variability is necessary because I don't find the core puzzle interesting enough, at least yet. Time I change that, but at least yet I don't find the core puzzle interesting enough to go into it again and again and again with the same engine. But the fact that I can mix up the faction I play and have a totally different puzzle in front of me, well, that variability adds to the experience. So variability isn't necessarily essential, but the more variability is present, the more it can make up for other factors, especially in a game which I'm trying to experience more on a repeated basis. And finally, 11. 11 is going to be production values and theme, which is just the general idea that, I mean, at the end of the day, I like miniatures. I like good art. I like themes that appeal to me as opposed to themes that don't. Those things will never make or break a game, but it certainly will be reasons why I pay attention initially, and sometimes, unfortunately, it'll be reasons why I want to keep a game longer than I should, even once I've decided that other factors aren't enough for me to keep said game in my collection. That's going to be my 11 games, my 11 things. And so going through them quickly, let's go through them off the bat. We'll do Architects last because Architects is the exception, which we'll have to cover. But Aquatica, powers and abilities, absolutely. You have your inherent powers, and as well as the fact that you're building up a set of cards that will let you do unique things compared to your starting hand as you build up those cards. It has engine building because, like I said, those cards get progressively better. Plus, you'll be slotting cards into your own player board. You'll be able to cash in to get more things done. And then, of course, you're also your mantis, so to speak. It has the puzzle, very much a puzzle. The choices you can make in every single one of these things is so many different choices of which action you're going to take from your handful of cards at any given time, which one's going to give you the greatest return, which of the top cards or perhaps optional bonuses are you going for in the game. Player interaction. So the player interaction in Aquatica is going to be a bit on the lower side. It's going to come primarily from the fact that people are competing over shared goals. They're competing over the cards in the card row, and then when they try to push cards up from the Explorer action, it's going to be there. It's a little bit on the low end, but it's still there. We have Accelerated Endgame. It very much has the Accelerated Endgame because of exactly that part I talked about. Because it has tableau building, you'll get to the first part of the game, you're just trying to get things going, and then you'll get to the end game, and you'll be able to get these higher, more powerful moves in as you just slowly start knocking off all objectives. Players will go from having one objective, and then a few turns later they'll have 2, 3, 4 rapid fire in that sense. Grit your teeth decisions. So it doesn't have drafting, but I think it does have grit your teeth decisions. Very much as you try to pick which characters will most optimize your engine. It goes into that puzzle. Grit your teeth decisions almost kind of go hand in hand with the puzzle, because now that I think about it, the puzzle is only really a pro for me when it has that decision making. Although again, the degree is definitely present. People around you enjoying it. So Aquatica won't have that as much. It does have a little bit of it. It's not people are, completely head to the table, but it definitely is more of an optimization engine as people try to look at their cards, play their things, and you get to the end of the game and you're like, was that fun? They're like, yeah, let's do it again. So it is going to be a little bit lacking in the general enjoyment going on around the table. Wow moments, absolutely present in Aquatica. I've had so many turns because of the way you can cash in your mantas and because of the way you can slide up your cards to get different things. It will definitely have wow moments in the game where you get so much done in a single turn. People are like, whoa, that didn't see that coming. So it has that. The accessibility. Accessibility, I did this out of order. Accessibility, Aquatica is a game that is easy to learn, easy to teach, and plays in 30 minutes, knocks it out of the park in that sense. The variability is also going to be present because you'll never see the exact combination of cards come out in the exact same ways. And the variety of goals is going to be the bigger factor. Because you have different objectives and goals every single game, it's going to be a very different experience in the way it plays out. We've played this again and again and again, and I don't think it's ever felt exactly the same. Now, it does share the general high notes. The game is still going to be mostly the same, but in terms of the way you're trying to go for different things one game versus the next because of the goals or the combination of goals that are present, that will certainly be a thing. Production values and theme. Production values, the theme and art actually didn't pull me in as much. Production values are solid, but I wasn't really pulled in by the pure blue water, underwater thing going on. But the more I played it, I did after, but I think that's because I liked it way too much. Then we have Istanbul. Istanbul is going to have powers and abilities as well as you build out those mosques that will let you get more progressively powerful. And if you're playing with the Mocha and Baksheesh expansion, you'll also be able to get more of these coffee things that let you move across the board or go to different merchants, have interactions without paying for them. So it has powers and abilities. It has engine building as well. Same idea. As you get those powers and abilities, they get locked in, so you can get to do more and more every single turn in Istanbul as you go through the game. Plus your cart, you'll build up your cart, which allows you to cash in more gems. The puzzle is very much present there. The game is all about seeing the way the tiles interlaid in a given setup, and the fact that you have this 5x5 grid this game, that 5x5 grid that grid next game, and you're trying to figure out, well, the grid size varies based on the expansions you use, but you're trying to figure out which way you can move from here to here to here, dropping off your assistants in ways that most benefit you. The player interaction absolutely matters in this game. If players go to somewhere where you want to go first, it can really mess up your move, and so having an eye on for where players are with their merchants as far as what they plan on doing, that is absolutely going to matter in this game. Not as high as a game that's going to be like a Blood Rage or whatnot, but certainly present. The accessibility is going to be off the charts. This game is so easy to teach, so easy to jump into. The expansions are easy to explain as well. It's a very easy game to table, to play, to learn, all that stuff. The accelerated endgame. So the accelerated endgame is going to be definitely present as well. Same idea. Because there's tableau building, you're going to be able to do more and more as the game progresses, which means you'll go from the first 20 minutes of the game will get you 1 ruby, and then you'll get towards the end of the game and you'll get 3 rubies in the last 20 minutes of the game. So it very much does have that accelerated end game. People around you enjoying it. So this one I would say yes, it does very much have people around you enjoying it a lot because of the fact that this is very more interactive in what's going on, and people feel like they're accomplishing a lot. It is simultaneously light enough that you can do a lot of things without overly thinking it, but also be what's the word for it? But also not, because it's lighter, it allows people to revel in the decisions they are making and the fact that they just got 2 rubies or whatnot. Grit your teeth decisions. So it doesn't have grit your teeth decisions. It certainly has the puzzle. I believe it does. I don't think it has a ton of times in the game where you're like, what am I going to do? Sometimes in terms of which mosque tile to go for or which upgrade path to try to pursue, but more often than not, I would say it's more in the lighter range in terms of the degree of puzzle and complexity it's providing. People are wow moments. So I think the closest thing it's going to have to wow moments is endgame moments where you manage to cash in 2 things, get 2 rubies in a single turn. Most of the time, the game doesn't really have that much in the way of wow moments. Variability. Every single game is totally different. When you play Istanbul, the setup is going to completely redefine every single game, every single time. And then production values and theme is going to be, it's beautiful. The game is excellent. The art is great. The rubies are great. Everything about the game is solid. They have a big box already. If someone, I guess I don't need a better upgraded version, but it's pretty solid the way it is, I would say, overall. And the theme is fine. It's traders. I don't really care. It doesn't interest me. It doesn't disinterest me either. Now I'm going to skip Carson City and Spirit Island because this video is running longer than I thought it would. Let's cover Architects, because Architects is where the exceptions start to come into play. Architects let's go through this, has powers and abilities. Absolutely it does. It has engine building. Yes, very much has engine building because you're going to be getting more and more people every single time, and that's going to let you do more and more as the game progresses. It also has almost an inherent engine building as you place people down and take more powerful actions with each additional person. It has a puzzle. Absolutely has the puzzle. There's so many different ways you can try to figure out which pathway you're going to pursue to try to achieve your goals this game. Player interaction. Well, yes, of course player interaction matters because players are going to be capturing your workers. It's 100% very interactive in that sense. They'll also be taking your cards, fighting for placement in the cathedral, slowly but surely pushing the end game by all going towards the building spots. What players do in this game matters. It has accelerated endgame to a degree. It caps out to a degree because you only have so many different upgrades you have in your board, but the endgame does get, I would say, a little more accelerated without being drastically so in terms of the acceleration. Grit your teeth decisions. Does not have that one, but again, at least for myself it doesn't. The decisions I find are more basic. You want to go to pursue different pathways, but if you have too many people in one spot, then you'll want to go to that spot while you still can before they're captured. So it was only really have those decisions when you're trying to decide which new spot to go to pursue your options in the game. People around you enjoying it. Not as much. I would say similar to Istanbul, it's going to have a little bit of people around you enjoying it without being heavily so. Lighter, but not so light. Wow moments are not going to be that present. Perhaps when you capture a ton of people at once with a particularly strong action, but not really overly present. The accessibility is going to be there. It's a fairly easy game to teach, to explain, to get to the table. The variability is going to be there to a degree. The variability is going to come not as high as, let's say, Istanbul or Aquatica in terms of that, but the variability in terms of the way the building cards you get, the various people on the board, that's going to pivot and change up the way you experience the game. Now, it's not going to be done to an overly degree because you're not changing the core aspect of what players are going for, but it might shift up the way you approach each game as your tableau changes. The production values and theme are solid. I love the art of the game. In general, this type of theme is going to work for me, and the production values are totally solid. And so, I'm getting rid of architects all the same. Which means my list still needs work. Whether it's the list of things that I enjoy in games, or whether it's the list of reasons I don't enjoy games, or what I'm not looking for in games, it's not a perfect list. But I would also say Architects of the West Kingdom is a game that I do enjoy, just not one I feel the need to keep. I don't have a clear distinction as to why. But that's the exception. And there are going to be other exceptions. But overall, this is a list of the 10 things, or the 11 things, that I currently use as what I'm looking for in gaming experiences, what works for me, what makes me interested. And sometime in the next month, 2 months, whenever I get around to it, I'll do another video of the specific things that don't work for me, of what makes a game less likely to hit the table and therefore less likely to stay in the collection. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.